Well, hey there, travelers. Welcome back to the campfire. We're just about to start the next story, so you're right on time. Go ahead and grab a seat and relax, and we'll get started. Tonight's story is called Let Sleeping Barbarians Lie. Someone was going to die. Of that, she was certain. The alarm bell sounded around noon and woke Cully from her midday nap. She'd slammed her head when she bolted awake, her horns launching themselves in the wood of the table above her. The tavern owner had heard and thrown her out, sending the satyr rushing into a crowd of panicked townsfolk as they sought shelter from whatever had threatened the town. A few shoved her aside without care, one spilled the drink she'd swiped on her way out of the tavern, and most acted like she didn't exist as they barred any safe haven she could have sheltered in. She hadn't planned to shelter, mind you, but it's the principle of the thing. They didn't want to share their space with her. Guards rushed past the young woman next, a few pausing just long enough to tell her to shelter. None of them cared enough to see that she did, of course. Satyrs weren't real people as far as these folks were concerned. She, like the rest of her very not-human party, were just coin and space fillers. Besides, there was a threat outside the walls, after all. Or maybe in the walls? It sounded closer now. All the screaming had given her the worst migraine. You know, the kind that wraps itself like a snake around your head and crushes as hard as it can. It was like that, minus the snake. Still, Cully continued to walk down the street that led towards the gate at a casual pace. In the center of the village, explosions sounded and made her ears ring louder than the bells. The midday light hurt as it blazed down on her unarmored body, a simple tunic serving the need for decent clothing. Her eyes screwed shut as she let her ears and hooves lead her towards the sound of conflict. Fate, cruel as always, had her find a wall first. Or rather, find a wall head first. Muttering in annoyance, Cully opened her eyes and figured out where she was. A strewn-apart guard here, a skeleton in melted armor that had probably been a guard there, and enough blood to make a vampire vomit. Yeah, this was the place. Taking a deep breath, the satyr rolled her head to pop her neck. Sleeping under tables wasn't great for the joints, and there wasn't enough ale left in her system to compensate. Hangovers were very poor company indeed. Ah, here we go. This'll work. Cully knelt down and picked up the guard's halberd from among the viscera. It had held up far better than its previous wielder, save for some dulling of the blade. See, that's just sloppy weapon care. That's your first problem. Slinging the weapon over her shoulder, Cully let out a tired yawn. Hell, why is it always my nap that gets interrupted? Bet Twizzle or Corvus are still sound asleep somewhere, those jerks. Giving an annoyed sigh, she turned to walk down the street as she followed the smattering of blood and bodies. It wasn't long before the satyr found the source of her aggravation. In the town square, glistening in the light of the now afternoon sun, was a young, black dragon. She was greeted by the sight of it spewing acid across several guards who had decided to charge it head-on, leaving behind puddles of goop in their place. She gave a nearby guard a calm look, watching the man trembling in his armor. "You guys want some help?" "We don't need the help of some nasty fae." The man spat at her, his face twisted in an offended sneer. "There's literally a dragon killing you guys. I think you need help." "Then you can help by getting out of our way. Go back to your own kind." With that, the armored guard lowered the visor of his helm and charged forward valiantly. He also died valiantly a few seconds later, what remained of his torso flopping to the ground as the dragon swallowed the rest. Morons. Cully rubbed her eyes and walked up towards the dragon. "Hey, you!" The dragon spun to face her with a bellowing roar, acidic spittle showering along her body and burning holes in her tunic. Not her, mind you, just the tunic. She looked down at the ruined clothing with a twitch in her eye before returning her attention to the dragon. "You got a name?"
"I'm Mandragore, bane of flesh. Kneel, goat thing, and I shall feast upon you with merciful swiftness."
Cully blinked slowly at the dragon before shifting the halberd on her shoulder. "You gonna ask my name, or are you gonna be rude?"
"I do not care for the names of meats. You are all but sustenance to me."
"So you're not going to ask my name?" Cully asked, looking up at the dragon as it loomed over her. Where she was a mere 4.5 feet of satyr, the dragon was easily 12 feet taller. Maybe. She wasn't great with math. Andragor looked down at her with a wicked sneer.
"What a foolish little goat you are."
He drew his face inches from hers as his saliva sizzled against the cobblestones where it dropped from his fang-filled maw.
Time to die.
The rest of his statement was cut short by the halberd coming down into his skull. The dragon's head slammed into the stones as the steel of the blade split through hard scales and harder bone until it buried into the ground beneath it all. With an unceremonious thud, the body of the dragon slumped dead to the ground. "It's Coley, by the way, you rude dick. That's for waking me up from my nap." Stepping back from the corpse, the satyr turned to head back towards the tavern her party was at. All around her, surviving guards gawked and stared at the small goat girl who had felled a dragon in a single strike. They'd all felt, for a single instant, a deep, soul-crushing rage from the girl, before it faded into the aether of time. As she made her way back through town, Coley didn't care about the guards, or the dragon, or the fact that what little clothing she had been melted away into tatters. All she cared about was one more drink, a few more hours of sleep, and the adventure with her friends that awaited ahead.